All right, hey everybody. In this video, we're going to talk about setting up your product costs. So we're going to go through and set up all of your trucking costs, equipment, labor, additional items, and so forth. We'll give a little bit of an update or a little bit of insight into what products are and how to set those up. But we're going to spend the time of this video on inputting your costs. And in the next video, we're going to set up your products. So let's jump in. So over on this left-hand side, we're going to be under product settings. In the last video, we talked about organization settings. So all of your company umbrella settings live in organization settings, but all of your cost settings are going to be found under your product settings. So all of your costs for how much you charge or how much you get charged for different things and how you want to include those in the proposal will all be found under your product settings. So far, if you followed our onboarding series, you've set up your organization settings and your proposal settings, and now you're ready to start inputting your cost items. Under product settings, we have several different items. I'm going to give a quick overview of what a product is, and then we're going to talk about these, what I refer to as kind of your foundational, your building blocks of creating a product. So when we think of a product, this is the item that you're adding to the proposal. However, there's more to it than that. If I go into my paving category, I have lots of different products in here. The reason for that is I bid different types of jobs a different way. There's different variables that take into account if I'm bidding, and we'll use kind of these three simple examples here. If I'm bidding a driveway, I have different variables that I'm accounting for, which could be my crew's production rate, meaning how many tons can they put down an hour or how many square yards they do in a day. I may take a different equipment package to driveways than I do a street. I may take a different crew size to driveways than I do a street. I may have a different profit margin on driveways than I do a street or a parking lot, okay? So in a product, this is where we take into account those different variables. If I click into this, I measure this type of job by the square foot. I want to estimate my labor cost by the man hour or by the crew hour. My crew has a production rate in parking lots of 40 tons per hour, or I can do square feet per day if I wanted to. I want 20% profit on my parking lot jobs. This is how I describe my parking lot jobs. This is my crew that I'm going to take. This is where I'm going to pull material and my default depth, my typical depth. And I can have multiple of these for a 3-inch or a 5-inch or a 2/3, inch and a half over 2.5. However you have these, you can set these up, different products for different situations. This is the equipment that I want to take and some additional items that I want to account for when I add this to a proposal. So when I talk about a product, I'm referring to these are the variables that I want to account for whenever I bid this type of job. And I can have a small parking lot product that has a different production rate and a different crew size, and a large parking lot product that has different variables or different settings for that. How this works is, and this is a demo account, so you're not going to have this many items. You don't have to. You can really start with one product and you can overwrite all of these within a proposal. However, if you create these products and you tune in or dial in those different settings, then all of those settings or all of those variables that we talked about, crew size, production rate, etc., will all be added to the proposal for you automatically. And the formulas that we run within the proposal will take into account all of those variables for you right from the beginning. And then you can tweak and dial what you need, but the majority of the work in the proposal and the majority of the calculations will already be done for you. So when we look at a product, we associate, for instance, a crew to that product. We associate a plant, equipment pieces, costs to that product. So when we look over here back on the left-hand side, below products, starting at the bottom, we have our trucking. We have our plants, additional costs, crews, equipment. And we'll talk about groups in another video, We have a video on YouTube already about product groups and adding groups to the proposal. So we're not going to cover that in this onboarding video, but these are the foundational building blocks of what get added to a product, the variables that get added to a product like we're looking at here. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to jump out of the product settings and we're going to go down and we're going to talk about each one of these foundational building blocks, from trucks to plants to additional costs and the functionality there and crews. And then we're going to come back and we're going to create a product with these items associated to it. So starting at the bottom, we've got our transfer trucks. When you take material off a job site, if you're doing an R&R or a mill, you pay to truck that off in most cases. And then when you're doing a pave, you're bringing material to the job. So this is your trucking. What types of trucks are you using to haul material to and from a job? In this case, I have a strong arm that hauls 24 tons. I pay $120 an hour to run this type of truck or to lease this type of truck. And some plants across the country or some companies across the country charge per weight instead of per hour. And so I pay $10 per ton hauled from this truck instead of $120 per hour. If I need to create another one, I'm going to click this create transfer truck. There's really only 4 settings here. Let's create a triaxle. My hauling capacity in our tries out here are like 18 ton. We're going to pay $125 an hour. And my default rate per ton is, let's call it $8.50. If you don't use rate per ton because it's not as common, you can either leave this to 0, you can leave the default value. The proposal is going to default to an hourly trucking time. And then you toggle between that and your calculate trucking by weight. So this, if you don't use this, ignore it, set it to 0, set it to any value, and it's not going to impact what you're doing unless you switch over to it in the proposal. And click create. And that's all I need to do. Now I've got my triaxle down here. If I need to edit this, maybe we'll change this to a quad because we already have a triaxle. So we'll do a quad axle, and now I've got my quad set up right here, and that's added. Plants. This is where you are getting material from, so asphalt, base, rock, stone, anything like that. Or if I'm milling out, most of the time I'm taking that back to a plant as well. So where are you taking material back to? So I'm going to click into one of these and I'll show you how this is set up. I've got the name of the plant, be descriptive so you can find this. The phone number if I need that later, and the address. I need the address because that's going to help us determine the travel time from the plant to the job and then back to the plant if I need to. But the round trip travel time to haul material to and from a job location. Okay, so I set up my plant. I've got my list of different types of materials in here. So I'm going to get asphalt from this plant and I pay $89 a ton for asphalt. If you get charged tax, which in most cases you do, tax on your materials, even though you don't charge tax on your services, this would be my after-tax price. So whatever my final tax price is from the plant, that's what I would input here. I can also buy road base from this plant. I pay $12 a ton for road base. I can also get gravel at $20 a ton. And then this is something that gets overlooked quite a bit actually, is if I'm gonna mill out, I'm gonna take the millings back to this plant. However, in most cases, plants want that material. So they don't typically charge for dropping millings or debris or removed asphalt back at their plant. So I'm going to still select that I'm going to be able to take millings back to this plant. And because we don't get charged to drop it, I'm going to put $0 here, meaning this is a $0 per ton product. However, this is still going to allow me to calculate the trucking time that it takes to get that material from the job back to the plant. So this could be millings, debris, spoils, anything like that that you call it. Which brings me to this add custom material type. If in this drop down, the name of the material does not exist, I can create a separate one. So a lot of our 12.5 millimeter or 19 millimeter, I don't know all the acronyms across the country, but 12.5, SLT, et cetera, I can create that. And then once I create that material type, that is going to be found in this drop down. It doesn't look like I have a 12.5 millimeter in this demo account, so I'm going to do 12.5 millimeter. We'll create this, and now I can add material to the plant. I have my 12.5 millimeter, and I'm going to say I pay $93 per ton. So you can define all of the different materials that you have, which plants you can pull those from, and how much you're paying for that material from that specific plant. All right, additional costs. There's a lot of functionality in additional costs. We're not going to spend the time to go over each and every different fee type, but additional costs are added items that I need to go into a proposal that I want to make sure I'm accounting for whenever I put together an estimate. A lot of common things in here include things like traffic control, mobilization if you wanted to charge extra mob in addition to the travel time, bonds, permits. Many people will use additional costs to calculate their striping within their striping products, the striping line items. So stencils, there's additional upcharges like burning concrete or different concrete finishes. There's lots of different functionality in here, and you can notice that there's different types of fees that we can do here. So let's talk about those just a little bit. So if I just want to charge a flat rate for the number of quantity of an item. So let's just call this traffic control, and we charge $500 per traffic control, let's say. So I can do a flat fee, and my fee is going to be $500. So now in the proposal, I can say a quantity of 1 times by 500 gives me $500 in traffic control. I can increase that quantity to 5 traffic controls at $500 would add $2,500 to the proposal. So this is just a flat fee based on however many you want to include in that proposal. Another common one is based on the job size. So this is very common with tack. Most people have a formula for tack. I take my square footage or my square yardage, I multiply it by a number, 0.05, let's call it. And that gives me the number of gallons that I need for tack for that particular job. So if I do of job size, my percentage is 0.05, and then my cost would be whatever you pay for tack. And let's just say it's $5 a gallon for simplicity, okay? So how our system will work is we take the job size, we multiply it by 0.05, and that's going to give you a gallon quantity. Let's just call that 100 gallons. We'll use that 100 gallons, and then we would multiply it by 5, and we would add $500 to your proposal. So this is a way that we can calculate not only the cost, but how many gallons of tack, in this particular case, you're going to need for that job, and based on the number of gallons, what your cost will be for tack on that job. And all of this is done automatically once you have this set up. We'll calculate all of that for you based on the job size that you input into the proposal. The last thing that I'll talk about, percentage of total cost. We figure up all of your costs, and then we add a percentage to the overall proposal. Material needed. This is very common in like a slurry. I know how many tons of sand I need. And then the oil is a ratio of how many tons of sand. I need 5% oil for every ton of sand, right? And so I can do this based on how many tons of sand. I know how much oil I need and what that's going to cost. So same thing here. And then multiple days on job. If I say this is a 4-day job in the proposal, and this is my per diem line item, and we do $250 a day per diem. If I say this is a 4-day job and I'm adding per diem to my proposal, then our system will automatically recognize 4 days times 250 and add $1,000 to the proposal. So really advanced formulas here that allow you to set this up, kind of a set it and forget it, where based on how you want to calculate these costs, we can do a lot of things and a lot of formulas automatically for you. Let's jump to crews now. Crews can be one of many different things. You can set up your crews as a small crew, large crew, a crack seal crew, a seal coat crew, an asphalt crew, etc. Or you can do these as individual. I've got loop man, I've got an operator, I've got a roller man, etc. So I can create single individuals that you can then increase. I know I need 3 loop man, 2 operators, 2 roller man on this particular job. Or I can say I have a production crew or a 9-man crew or a 7-man crew. So however you want to set these up, these are very simple. I can do create crew. I'll call this my seal coat 4-man crew. Maybe I take a 4-man crew to smaller jobs and a larger crew to larger jobs. We'll call this a seal coat crew. Select the default foreman. And what is your rate for that crew? So if you did an individual, like a seal coat brush man or sprayer man, this would be their individual rate. If I'm doing a 4-man crew, I'll take all 4 of those guys. For simplicity, let's say I'm paying them 25 bucks an hour, and we'll do $100 an hour here because I've got 4 guys at 25 bucks an hour gives me $100. This color is important. This is what lands on the calendar. So many of our customers will do, all of my asphalt crews are red or a shade of red. All of my seal coat crews are yellow, for example. All of my crack seal crews are green, for example. And so when I'm looking at the calendar, I know exactly what that crew is based on the color. When I'm drawing out my maps, I'm doing all of my asphalt measurements in red and all of my seal coat measurements in yellow. So now I have a map color that matches the crew color. And now we're doing some color association so we know exactly what we're looking at without having to really read or have all the context. So color is important. Assign the color that you want to that crew, and then we'll do create. Again, this is a demo account. You're not going to have all of these different crews, but you'll set up enough to help you bid. It's important to know that crews help with 2 different things. One, with estimating. You can have a single crew that you estimate every single time across all jobs. That's great. That's totally acceptable. But when it comes to scheduling, you may have different crews that you then want to schedule. You could have Dave's paving crew and Chris's paving crew. So you can have a single asphalt production crew that I use within every estimate, so I don't have to make that change. And maybe I don't know if Dave or Chris will be paving that at the time I estimate it. That's fine. Just throw in your paving crew into the estimate. But when it comes time to scheduling, you also have the opportunity to change or assign a specific crew to that particular job or specific people to that individual job. So now I have asphalt production crew, but I could also have Chris's paving crew and Dave's paving crew so that when it comes time to schedule that job, I can assign it to the proper crew and they can have that work order associated to them. All right, equipment now. So equipment, again, can be handled in many different ways. If you do not bill or include equipment in your estimates as a separate cost item, you can completely ignore this section. You don't have to add equipment to your estimates. If you have a packaged equipment rate, like this asphalt hourly equipment rate, you can create a single block of equipment like this, and your hourly rate is $450, and that's all you have to do. If you break down each piece of equipment that you're going to take to that particular job, then you can have individual pieces of equipment that you associate to that product or to that proposal, and each of those pieces of equipment will be added for you automatically. This becomes helpful when you have a job that requires a special piece of equipment or an extra piece of equipment. Then I can say that I need my large paver, large roller, and my small roller on this job, including my breakdown roller, right? So now you can start to customize the different types of equipment that you're putting on each individual job if you break them out individually. But lots of different ways that you can do this, and people do this differently all across the country. So just customize it to how you're doing it. I'm going to jump in here and I'm going to show you a couple different things. I'm going to click into this, a couple different ways that we can estimate this. So this is my asphalt hourly equipment rate. My charge type is I'm going to do by the hour. I charge $450 an hour. I can include an additional fuel upcharge to that. So if I have a 10-hour job, This is going to be 4,500 bucks is what I'm going to apply to this. But if I had $100 here, then I'm going to add an extra $100. So it would be $4,600 would be the final cost for this equipment package for that job. My on-job use rate, we'll use that 10-hour example still. If I have a piece of equipment that I know only runs for about 30% of the time of a given job, if I type in 30 here, then of that 10-hour job, we will automatically knock that 10 hours down to 3 hours because that is 30% of the job time, of the 10-hour job time. And we'll only include 3 hours worth of the $450 associated to that job. So $1,350 would be added to that job rather than the full $4,500. Most people leave this at 100. If I'm taking a piece of equipment to that job, I cannot take that piece of equipment anywhere else. Therefore, I'm going to bill for the full time for that piece of equipment. Extremely common. You can also adjust the hours directly within the proposal or the quantity directly within the proposal. So most people will set this to 100, and if they need to lower the hours on a particular piece of equipment within a specific proposal, then they'll lower that or raise it within the proposal itself. This calculates travel time. We can add travel time or mob time to the equipment automatically. This is on by default. So we'll have your 10-hour job time, but if it's an hour away, we'll add another hour to the overall time for that piece of equipment. So you'll have 11 hours of time, including mob time and job time. So 11 times 450 is what's going to get added. 4950 is what's going to get added to that proposal. If this is off, we're strictly dealing with job time, no mob time for your pieces of equipment. All right, let's talk about charge type for just one sec. So hourly is an option. If I do a half day at $450, maybe my half day is half of this, which would be $22.50, okay? And so my half day rate, if I'm in a proposal and a job is saying it's going to take 2 hours, and my average working hours in the account, which we talked about in the last video, is set to 10 hours, we're gonna round that 2 hours up to the nearest half day, which would be 5 hours. And I'm going to associate 5 hours or 1/2 day to this job. And so I'll have 1/2 day at $22.50. So $22.50 will get added to this proposal. If I cross the threshold of that 5 hours, we'll round up to, again, to the nearest half day. So let's say my job is a 6-hour job. We're gonna round that up to the nearest half day, which would be a full day, which would be equivalent to 2 half days. And I'm gonna add $4,500, so $22.50 times 2, because 2 half days to that proposal. So we're going to just round to the nearest half day every time if this is selected to half day. Full day, it's very similar to half day, but we always round up to the nearest full day. So if my full day rate is that $4,500, let's use that same 2-hour concept. So I have a job that's going to take 2 hours. We're gonna round this up to a full day. So 1 full day at $4,500. If it's a 9-hour job, we're gonna round this up to 1 full day, and I'm gonna still have $4,500. So we're always going to round up to a full day in this case and apply the full amount. If I have a job that's 11 hours, which has crossed my 1 full day threshold of 10 hours, so now I have 11 hours, we're rounding up to 2 full days. So I'm gonna have $4,500 times 2, which would be $9,000. Most common what we see is I want a half day. And so that 11 hours, I'm gonna round up to 3 half days, right? Because I've got a full day and then 1 hour rolling into the next day. So I round this up to 3 half days, and I'm going to have 3 times whatever this number is here instead of doing 2 full days. That's a lot. Essentially, it's do you bid all of your equipment or crews by the half day, full day, or hourly? And based on the time that you associate to the job, will automatically account for rounding up or down based on that job time. So now you should know how to input your costs for trucking, for plants, for crews, equipment, etc. These are the foundational building blocks that are used to create a product. And again, a product is what stores all of the variables, all of the cost inputs that you want to add to the proposal. In the next video, we're going to go through setting up those products and the different types of products. So hopefully this is helpful to inform you how to set up your costs. Now we're going to start configuring those products, and then we'll jump in and create a proposal together.